we discussed this topic, uh, response of the governments in the Arab Gulf states to the American demands and local demands for democratic reforms and human rights reforms. And we discussed some of the sections. And today we discuss the reforms introduced in these sectors: civil society, media, and freedom of expression. Gulf monarchies, monarchies,
Yes, sir. Ruled by the
Gulf monarchies loosened their control over civil society. In Kuwait, in May 2006, the Constitutional Court cancelled 15 sections of the 1979 law on public gatherings. So there were laws which which did not allow public gatherings. So they were loosened. So some changes were made in those laws in Kuwait. And in Kuwait in May 2006, the Constitutional Court cancelled 15 sections of the 1979 law on public gatherings. In Bahrain in May 2006, the parliament amended the 1973 public gatherings law. The ban on rallies near sensitive places was removed. So before that, there was ban on rallies near sensitive places. People could hold rallies near hospitals and airports after changing the law. Now people could hold rallies near hospitals and near airports. Workers were also allowed to form unions in 2002. Before 2002, workers did not form unions in Bahrain. Now they were allowed. They could form unions without getting government permission. In Qatar, in May 2004, the government replaced the 1998 law with a new law. This new law allowed people to form professional associations. Qatar also allowed workers to form independent unions in 2004. Workers were allowed to negotiate with employers. They could discuss working hours. They could discuss working conditions. And they could also discuss wages with the employers. If no government was reached, if no agreement was reached, workers were allowed to go on strike. Before that, workers could not go on strike. Now they were allowed to go on strike. Growth of civil society organizations, CSOs. In 2002, Bahrain allowed human rights groups to take part in political activities. In the same year, Bahrain saw the creation of 65 new associations. These included 11 political associations and 13 professional associations. Until 2004, the number of civil society organizations in Bahrain had crossed 300. Kuwait, by 2006, had 55 different societies. These societies worked on religious issues, gender reform, political liberalization, and economic liberalization. About 40,000 people were members of these societies. In the UAE, civil society became more visible after 2000. Kuwait approved its first human rights association in 2004. It means until 2004, there were no human rights associations in Kuwait before that. Calls for reform from civil society. In March 2003, 6 political associations in Bahrain issued a declaration. They demanded more reforms in this declaration. They asked for expansion of political rights. They also asked for expansion of individual freedoms. They also emphasized the need to empower women. They also called for ending corruption, media, media reforms, and new developments. Media and freedom of expression saw some positive changes. Oman created the Gulf Press Freedom Organization. Its aims were to support freedom of expression, to improve human rights conditions, and to provide professional help to media workers in the Gulf and Yemen. Saudi Arabia licensed the Saudi Journalists Association in 2003. Journalists Association. It means now journalists, media persons, they were getting some rights. It was formally established in 2004. The association had a 9-member board and a chairman. All members were elected. It is important. It is important to note. The members of the Journalists Association in Saudi Arabia, they were not appointed by the government, they were elected by the journalists. So they got some rights. 300 journalists voted in the first election in 2004. Emergence of private TV channels. Gulf governments also allowed private TV channels. Before this, most media was state-run. State-run means it was owned by the state, by the government. Like in Pakistan, we have PTV. It is owned by the state. Radio Pakistan, it is owned by the state. But now you have 20s of channels, private channels, okay, in Pakistan. There are 20s of radio channels in Pakistan. Similarly, there are so many newspapers and magazines, okay, in all languages. In Kuwait, in 2003, the government allowed its first private satellite TV channel in Kuwait. First private TV channel was allowed in 2003. The channel was located in Dubai Media City. By early 2005, Kuwait had 2 operating satellite channels. Al Ikhbariya was established in Kuwait in January 2004. The UAE licensed Al Arabiya in 2003. Al Arabiya became known for independent and liberal coverage. In Qatar, Al Jazeera set up a media training and development center in 2004. Al Jazeera English began in November 2006. When a Saudi female newscaster read the first bulletin on Al Ikhbariya, it became news itself. It became news itself. First time in Saudi Arabia, a woman read the news on the TV screen. So it was itself a news. It was itself a news that in Saudi Arabia, a woman casted news on TV screen. Before that, it was not possible. It could not be imagined in Saudi Arabia that a woman would come on TV screen. This was considered unusual in Kuwait. Legal reforms for media freedom. Bahrain took many legal steps to strengthen media and freedom of expression. In 2002, Bahrain introduced new press laws. These laws said publications cannot be shut down without good reason. In May 2007, the Upper House Shura Council passed a draft law. This draft law aimed to remove criminal penalties for journalistic offenses. In May 2008, the Council ended imprisonment of journalists. it stated that editors cannot be sued for articles they did not write. Before that, if there was an article in a newspaper which was against the government, the editor could be punished. The editor could be punished through court. Now it was made law that if an article is published in a certain newspaper against the government, which the government does not like, the government will not punish the editor. So with this, today's short session comes to an end. So here we close.